Good morning. It's Tuesday, November 30th. And let me tell you, today is a very big day in this country because a 3-judge panel in the D.C. area will be deciding on whether or not the National Archives can release those papers, the Trump papers, which he has fought vigorously to keep from getting out into the public domain. And many politicians in this country are on one side of the fence or the other. Doesn't seem like our politicians can get together and work together, and that's an ongoing battle. But I want to talk about a politician from Minnesota, a politician who was on the verge of giving birth. And what do you think she did? She got on her bicycle and she rode to the hospital to give birth an hour later. Mother and baby are doing fine. The young lady's name is Julie Ann Genter. Julie Ann was born in Rochester, Minnesota. She's actually 41 years old. She's no spring chicken. And she went to the University of California at Berkeley and then to the University of Auckland, where she studied politics. And so in 2011, she was elected a member of the New Zealand Parliament. So she's not a fly-by-night person. She worked hard to get where she is, and she must love her job. And in New Zealand, this apparently is not an unusual situation. New Zealand has about 5 million people, and it has a reputation for having down-to-earth politicians. The Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, took maternity leave while in office and brought her 3-month-old to a United Nations meeting, even as she was still breastfeeding. So these people are there to live their lives and do their jobs. Now, can you imagine? Could you imagine any politician in the United States doing anything like this? Being down to earth, getting up with labor pains at 3 o'clock in the morning and deciding that she's got enough time to ride her bicycle to the hospital, leaves her husband sleeping at home to watch her other infant who's only like 2 years old? No. We should be proud of this person, though. She grew up in Minnesota. She has dual citizenship. Julie Ann Genter is an American citizen as well as a citizen of New Zealand. Maybe if everything went well, we could convince her to come back to this country and show us how things are supposed to be done, how politicians are supposed to be down-to-earth people, not people who hide, not people who spend their lives in the political circles raising money so that they can continue to be reelected. It looks to me like politicians who recognize that they have to do things that is good for themselves and good for the country. That's what we need in this country. We need more down-to-earth politicians. We need more politicians that understand what's going on around them and don't have grandiose schemes that really have no bearing on what's going on around them. They have schemes where they can fix things. They believe they can fix things, but they really haven't a plan. They just have an idea. And there's a huge gap between an idea and a workable plan. And we could see all of that happening, the Build Back Better America, or whatever it's called, and how that went back and forth, and we couldn't get any answers. We couldn't get together. Now, I'm willing to bet you that if Julie Ann Genter was here, and she rode her bicycle to work, she would have answers. And she would hold up the country probably, like some people we know. That things are not as complicated in a nation of 5 million people. But they do have some problems just like ours. The Aborigines there for a long time were treated very much like our indigenous people were. And so they've come through racial strifes and things like that. But with 5 million people, you can probably get their act together a lot easier than dealing with 330 million people. Anyhow, Julianne has a Facebook page. And on her Facebook page, she talks about how she loves her bicycle and how she loves her family. Things that are important to her and not national events, so to speak. She still goes to work and does her job. And maybe we need to convince her to come back to Minnesota and do some things and show some of the politicians in this country what it really means to be a politician. Right? So I think this is a great story. It's a great story because if people are down to earth and they're not living in their ivory towers, And maybe I'm wrong about half of the politicians in this country. And maybe I'm not. But it's clear to me that we can't get together and do anything. And maybe if our politicians rode bicycles to work, they would be more willing to get together because they would be out there and breathing the fresh air and not being isolated from the real world. And maybe if they didn't have time to raise campaign funds and things like that, they would pay attention to what has to get done in this country. So I think it's good to talk about what goes on in other places. And I think it's bad for us if we lose great citizens like Julianne Genta to other countries. When you think about it, she came from Minnesota. Is Minnesota so different from New Zealand? I don't know. I can't answer that question. But obviously, she thought it was, and she moved there in 2006. So she's only there for 15 years. And in 15 years, she was able to become a politician and get elected. So she must have something on the ball. And it's a shame that we, in this country, lost a great citizen like that. Because we need more good citizens in this country. We need more good citizens than we need anything else. We need people who can get together, sit around the campfire, so to speak, and get things done. And I say all of that today because today, if this decision by the courts goes badly, then we will have a lot more trouble in this country. A lot more. So I'm hoping that the 3-judge panel decides in favor of Biden administration and that those papers get released. And that's what I have for this morning, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.